Lights,
Here.
Davis, we have an absence memo. Bynum. Here. Burrows.
Here.
Townsend, we have an absence memo. Burns,
Here.
Ramirez,
Here.
Hill,
Here.
Kane.
Here.
Lopez,
Here.
Garner.
Here. Thank you, clerk. This afternoon, the governing body will be hearing updates regarding the development commonly known as the City Hall Lofts and the City Hall Place projects located at approximately 6th and Ann. Yes, sorry, clerk. Please announce the revisions.
All right, Mayor, we have an agenda update that went out that included two revisions. The first one is an amended notice of the special meeting. The second one was adding an item under the mayor's agenda for a resolution restating the authority of the Unified Government Board of Commissioners to set overall policy. That is all the revisions to the meeting.
Thank you. Again, the first item is going to be a presentation by staff. I know there's been a lot of questions about what's taking place at 6th and Ann with the new development going on there. I know some of our commissioners had concerns. They gave it to our office from Commissioner Burrows's standing committee. We looked into it. We sent it back. There were still more questions. And just so there's complete clarity, not just for this commission and for staff that may not know, but more importantly, our residents here in Kansas City, Kansas, and those individuals that may live within close proximity of that development that is taking place. This special meeting was called so staff could get complete clarity on how we got to that development and where we're at today and what our residents can expect moving forward as a result of what they'll be advising us on this evening. So, Administrator.
We'll start with an overview of the project. Jeff, you're prepared to give us the history? Somebody?
Yeah, Jeff Conway. I don't know. Is that what you're gonna do? No.
Green button.
Yeah.
Test 1 2, test 1 2.
I just have to speak up. I'm sorry. Jeff Conway, UG Legal. There is a chronology, I think, that's been distributed to you about the items that have been run through the process with respect to permitting and all of that. Most of the activity by the UG on this particular project is land entitlements and the permitting process. There were very little items that were sent to the commission. At one point, there was an item for our IRBs that was teed up and ready to go for Economic Development Finance Committee. But the developer chose to pull that item the night before it was set to go before the committee. And so then that, for those members that were on that committee, then that meant that then the mayor's office requested a blue sheet to have the matter discussed anyway at the committee hearing. And so there was no action item at the committee level, and there still isn't. I don't know about the developer and what they may do, what their plans are. It could very well be that they've sought alternative financing from other locations, possibly private. I'm not sure. But at this point, I think we can do an overview of, Callie is here, that she's got a chronology of all of the different permitting applications that were filed and reviewed and approved, et cetera. So I could turn it over to her if she'd like to.
Good afternoon. My name is Callie McLaughlin. I'm a planner at the UG. to give a brief summary, there were some entitlements made both through the Landmarks Commission here with Randy that he, in our Historic Preservation Office completed. Some of those were done prior to any planning and zoning and Board of Commissioners entitlements. Some of them were done kind of running parallel simultaneously together. They are two distinct processes between the historic review and the regular planning entitlements. Once the planning entitlements were completed, both the historic ones, the non-historic ones, the building permit had a few revisions and then it was subsequently issued. The building permit was issued July 11th, 2024 of this year. There was a myriad of permits that go along with that. So not just the building permit, for the, what we call like the parent permit for the project, but then there's also the substantial permits that go along with that, including public works, other trade permits like mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and so on and so forth. So I can give you a little bit more of a breakdown of that entitlement timeline. It begins in October 2022, was the earliest application date that we had officially. I know we had some pre-development discussion amongst the department before that, just to give them a breakdown of what the process would look like and what those entitlements would entail. But the first official application that came through was for the historic changes zone that we had for that district. That is a different type of change of zone than what goes through the traditional planning and zoning commission. This is a change of zone for pertaining to historic use. So you will see a second change of zone entitlement on the schedule, but please understand that they are the same title, but within different departments, one historic, one not historic. There was another one that approved more or less the building design itself. That was a historic review. And then we have some non-historic reviews that include change of zone and preliminary development plans, 2 Board of Zoning appeals for parking, and then a final development plan that comes through. And that one is not heard by the Board of Commissioners, but just the Planning Commission itself. After those are complete and all those comments are kind of gathered and the agreements are finalized, they are internalized into the DRC building permit process and presented as comments to complete for the developer to acknowledge. For instance, if we tell you to plant 10 trees, do we have 10 trees on our building plan? So on and so forth. The permit is, as it was issued in June 11th, I believe they began construction shortly after, which includes some of the site work that you were seeing today, such as the job site trailer, the security perimeter fencing, the erosion control fencing, and so on and so forth.
I did forget to mention that the Board of Commissioners did have kind of a glancing blow on this. The developer at one point was looking at KDFA financing, and so we did receive the notice from KDFA that was an option, and we just had a similar item before the commissioners, just, I don't know, his last meeting, something like that. But we did receive the notification from KDFA. Under the statute, the local has 15 days to express disapproval. We received the notice March 6th. We scrambled and put it on to the March 7th full commission meeting. It was an item. The Board of Commissioners decided to not express disapproval on the project. Those 15 days have now run, of course, and so that's another piece of the puzzle.
Okay, thank you. I think I'll start off with some of the questions, the concerns that were brought to my office to work with. And thank you, legal team and our administrator for working with my staff to hopefully get the questions that were raised to my office, both from the public as well as some of our commissioners. I guess the biggest question out there came up as we were going through this was the parking, and there's a perception that we know that the Board of Zoning, BOZA, they approved a reduction in the amount of spaces that were required for that development for parking or something along that line. Is that correct?
Cali Department of Planning and Urban Design. Yes, it is correct. There was two separate BOZA applications or variance appeals, as we call them. The first appeal was not approved. I think there was some neighborhood concerns about the distance to the proposed parking lot. After that, there was some additional discussions about what alternative proposals would include. I believe you may have seen some things about Kinship Cafe and so on and so forth during that time, and I know that. So that's kind of about the time frame of when those discussions are being held. The developer came back with the alternative proposal, which included that parking agreement that was then later approved and finalized.
So, how many spaces did we, as part of that variance, what did we go from and scale it down to?
Off the top of my head, I'm not entirely sure what the finalized counts was. I was not the planner on that, but I can look that up for you shortly.
Okay, that'd be great. And then I don't think the concern was of what BOZA did or didn't do as far as the parking. I think the biggest concern that I've gotten from some of our commissioners and some folks in the community was that there was some level of agreement made to use public health department parking spaces as part of this development agreement with this private developer. Is that correct?
That is correct. There was an agreement that was reached. Part of the conditions was BOZA wanted to see the total number of parking spaces. So there was a lot over, I can't remember exactly the number, but it's, or a name, is it 6 over there? 6 over by, I just call it over by the Merck. And so there were some spots over there, and then there was some health department spots. I believe that they were unused. They're largely unused. They were observed for like a week, and just looked like there was a bank of 10 or 12 or something spots. None of these are exclusive spots, and they're not identified. There's no signage that says that this is going to be a particular residence spot or anything like that. So it's kind of first come, first serve. 1875 was the dollar amount that was negotiated on those. And so those spots put together with what was available plus at the lofts all added up to, I think it was around 60 spots for the units between the two buildings, the renovated one and the new construction.
So we, as part of the development agreement, we ceded public parking spaces for our residents to a private developer. Is that correct?
Callie McLaughlin, Department of Planning and Urban Design. Typically, when we need a parking variance or requirement, we are looking at a couple factors. One being specifically how many are available exclusively on that parcel. If they are able to obtain parking, but they are not exclusively on that subject properties or proposed developments parcel, we still have to give them a variance because they're not provided specifically on that parcel. As part of that variance approval, we would have a condition that stipulates find this parking somewhere else effectively is kind of how that worked. Reading off the staff report, that was for the Board of Zoning Appeals heard in July 10th in 2023. The proposal was a total of 60 off-street parking spaces are required. 14 spaces are provided on site. 20 spaces are provided in UG Lot E, which is the Wyandotte Health Department. 15 spaces in UG Lot 6, which is across from KCK FD headquarters. 11 spaces are in the City Hall Lofts garage. That was their overflow parking that was an addition. The total amount of spaces provided on site and through the parking agreement did equal the 60 amount of parking spaces that were required otherwise for the development.
Okay, so BOZA approved the parking variance. Who approved the actual development agreement? Because I don't believe just looking at state law and looking at our ordinances and the questions I've asked, it's kind of unclear as we know that the broader board doesn't have that authority, and that BOZA is a smaller conglomerate of that board and so what I'm saying is that once BOZA approved the variance, who ultimately approved the overall, I'm gonna just call it a deal, that proposal, the development agreement and the deal? Did that come back to the Unified Board of Government Commissioners? That's what I really need to know.
Sure. I believe there might be a little confusion on the terms of development agreement versus development plan review. In the planning and zoning process, we have a preliminary plan review, which is kind of like a testing the waters, get some initial feedback approval. And then the applicant can return for a final plan review, which is, we've taken all of our previous comments and revisions and finalized them in this final package and presented them for a final development plan review. And so I think there might be a little interchangeable between those terms, and that might be where some of this confusion lies, is what development agreement is. When it comes to a planning and zoning process, when we are going through the review process, whether it's a change of zone, special use permit, master plan amendment, any other kind of, including the variance appeal, we include all of the plans and items submitted as their final development plan, unless they specifically say it's a preliminary. So from a planning and zoning perspective, we did hear the preliminary during the change of zone and variance process. They returned to finalize their plans with a few changes to the final development plan. As far as the development plan agreement, that would not necessarily be held through the planning and zoning process. So that would be something, is a separate kind of term. And I think, like I said, there's some confusion on that. So that would be for legal department to answer.
So I guess for legal, to make it simple, that was a lot there. So,
Sorry.
Yeah.
just in layman's term,
Yeah.
who approved, as far as the governing body, this final agreement with this private developer that included the parking and all these public spaces that literally gave to a private developer? That's simple. Who approved that?
There's no approval. There's no development agreement in the conventional sense for this project.
Somebody from the unified government had to say, you can have our parking spaces.
Well, it was,
Who did that?
it was a parking agreement that was built in to satisfy a condition for BOZA. And the parking agreement was signed by the county administrator based on recommendations that we gave.
And that's fine. But did that ever come back to the commission for final approval?
It did not, because it's a BOZA and the BOZA on the variance.
I get the variance part. The variance was
Okay.
a
But under
request.
state law,
I get it. The variance is simple. They wanted so many spaces and things like that. But at the end of the day, past the variance that BOZA did and those requests, I'm just looking at who approved that final, said, yes, you all, BOZA's good with this. They've signed off on their variance, and now we have an agreement in hand that both the unified government staff feels comfortable with, this private developer feels comfortable with. We're good. We're going to move this thing forward. Who greenlighted it?
that would be, BOZA would be accepting the satisfaction of the conditions that were laid out.
I
think so. Yeah.
yeah.
If I may,
Councilman.
I mean,
It's-
do
Statute.
you have it?
Yeah.
Okay.
The county administrator has the authority to sign this parking facility use agreement. We have precedent for this. When we did the same type of agreement with the casino, the 7th Street Casino, we did the same process for that agreement. It didn't go before the commission. It was signed by the then county administrator at the time. There's no history of a resolution or an ordinance approved by the commission that authorized that parking facility agreement either. So there's precedent for the county administrator to, under his authority, to sign a parking facility use agreement. And so we did the same procedure for this, as we had the county administrator sign the parking facility use.
So what you're telling me, there's a practice in place.
Pretty much. We also think that it fits underneath the powers that he has under the ordinances as set out under his authority to conduct the business of the unified government. He's not giving away property. It's considered just a use agreement. There's no set parking spots that anybody can use. It's just an as you are, same with the casino. That the casino parking isn't it's first come, first served basis. In essence, it's the exact same type of agreement with the casino. So since it was the same type of agreement and that was the way that one was done, because of precedent and because it's just the determining the use of normal procedure for government property and government, how to carry out government business, it fits under the county administrator's powers and authority.
You answered the question as far as your viewpoint. I did talk to Chief Friend, and he has a different take on what you just described as far as an agreement with the unified government and parking. Matter of fact, he was really upset that he didn't have that opportunity. So I think we need to have further conversation with Chief Friend about that opportunity as well. And I just talked to him yesterday. But I say that just based on what you said. And commissioners, if you would walk through me, and, I know I graduated from Wyandotte, but I think I can read pretty well with my high school diploma. You've got several forms here. One is the consolidation study report. And I asked council, and it seems like we've been operating off practice. Now, you got to remember, I'm a prior law enforcement officer, and everything's black and white for me. I don't believe in operating in gray until this commission, this body says otherwise. I don't believe this mayor or any bureaucrats around here should have any authority or discretionary powers that's not expressly written in the consolidation report. This commission sets the policy, the resolutions, the charters, and everything else. And I know that I've heard several commissioners before I became mayor complain about why is this way and who did this? Well, as I started looking into policy as mayor, I realized that some of these things, and part of my role is to interpret policy to the public. That's one of the duties of the mayor. So I'm going to interpret policy to the public as I see it. And hopefully you all can walk with me through this. And if you disagree, please let me know. But I want to start this conversation and questions and debate off. And the first is the Consolidation Study Commission report. And if you go to the first page, it goes to the chapter 3. And it says, a unified and simple structure. The Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas Consolidation Study Commission recommends the newly created government shall be called the unified government, will have a legislative, executive, and judicial branch. The legislative is the mayor, the legislative is this commission. The executive is the mayor, and the judicial, believe it or not, is the district court. And nowhere does it mention staff. Now follow me along. If it goes to the general powers granted to the commission, which is section 2-32, and you go to section E.
You say what page that's on?
I'm sorry. Go to section 2-32,
What page?
second page E, the very top.
17E?
Yes,
This handout.
this handout,
232E.
At the top.
Yeah,
it
the very
says
top.
the letter U.
starts with you.
Ah, cool.
All right.
Cool.
Here it says to borrow money for the purpose and in the manner provided by law provisions of the charter. This is the commission's powers. To purchase, lease, construct, maintain, or otherwise acquire, hold, and operate any building or other property, real or personal, for any public purpose, and to sell, lease, or otherwise dispose of any property, real or personal, belonging to the unified government. And remember, if you go back to the consolidation study report, the unified government under the charter is the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judicial branch. Now, based on what legal is telling us, let's go to the next page, section 20-103. And this,
You want to make sure you're telling us which paper.
the last paper, section
This one,
2,
number.
start with number 9 at the top, but if you go scroll down, it says powers and duties of the county administrator. And if you read that on number 14, it says, this was approved by past commissions. It says, the county administrator signs all contracts, deeds, and other documents other than those authorized by the commission, to be signed by the mayor, or those which state or other laws require the signature of the chief executive mayor. Now, I can sign stuff too. I sign a lot of documents. I have a lot of conversations with developers, but I do know that I cannot sign any type of development agreements, they have to be approved by this body. And so therein lies the question for this commission. And it goes back to looking at our form of government and making sure that we're following it according to the rule of the law from the consolidation study report. And that's what I'm bringing for you all today, because I've heard a lot of complaints. This isn't about giving the mayor more power. I don't need any more power. I don't want any more power. I have enough headaches dealing with what I have now. But I want this commission to be empowered to make the final decision as per the charter and per your legal obligations that says that you adopt both a budget and you adopt policies and ordinances resolutions for this unified government to make sure that you all are comfortable that we're doing that. Why is that important under this situation? Because what I'm gathering, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that you had someone other than this body have a final disposition on publicly owned land being given to a private developer. If you're going to have a representative form of government of the people, by the people, and for the people, we're the elected officials up here. I don't get to vote, but you do. And when questions come from the public as how we got here, and I'm getting commissioners that don't know, and I don't have those answers, but then when I start doing my homework and working with my staff, and we're trying to peel back the layers of this onion to get to the bottom of it, whatever this commission decides is fine. And I told the administrator this. If you all choose to build a petting zoo in that lot, I respect it. That's what you all chose to do as a majority vote of this body. But my job, and I'm sworn as the mayor, both state statute and through ordinance, and when I raised my right hand, was to make sure that the ordinances of the unified government were followed, as well as any of applicable state laws. And when I read this stuff and I saw how this went about, it brings that into question. And then it raises a lot of just the public questions we have from the public is the tail wagging the dog of this commission? And how do we put the commission back in the driver's seat of making sure that this organization is being run by the elected officials? That's the questions that are being asked of me from the public. Now, I know some of you all don't work here every day. I do. I'm here every day. I come in and me and my staff, we do a lot of this mundane work. I'm the 11th commissioner and I'm here to work for you. I'm not here for me. Some of you may not believe that's true. I keep telling you, I'm not going to be the mayor forever. You'll find out real quick. I'm here because I want this body to be able to do the things that need to be done according to the spirit and the intention of what our voters voted for when they voted for unified government. And I don't believe that in a lot of instances, when I hear the complaints before I became mayor and then after I became mayor, that they really wanted non-elected individuals making, especially one or two individuals in some instances, making decisions for 165,000 people. They voted 10 commissioners to make those type of decisions. And I think this commission needs to reclaim that power that you have and to make it clearly known who creates the policies, the resolutions, the charters, and who runs this government. And my recommendation is that you make it clear that you all do. And at the end of the day, from what I'm getting, and correct me if I'm wrong, if some of you didn't know about public parking being given away to a private developer, that raises a red flag for me because there should be no instance where you don't know. And so I'm going to leave it there and open it up for questions. I did want to start that debate off. And then if you have questions for myself or staff, I'm open for that. And then we'll get into the resolution. Commissioner Bynum.
Thank you, Mayor. Questions. I have a variety of questions. I believe you said you spoke to Chief Billy Friend, but I heard staff say we do have a parking agreement with the 7th Street Casino. And I don't know which one of those things is true. You're telling me the chief says he doesn't?
He said he wished he had that opportunity to have a conversation about additional parking.
But there's a parking agreement with the Wyandotte Nation.
Yes, that's correct.
So that doesn't quite line up with Chief Friend saying he wished he had been able to have a conversation.
About additional parking,
Additional parking.
additional
I
parking.
work downtown every single day and I know for a fact that the casino patrons are parking in the public health department parking lot. They have a van that goes around and picks them up from wherever they can find a place to park. So, and that's been going on ever since that casino opened. So I don't know that those two things are much different. I also don't know if they're paying to use our parking lot. It sounds like maybe they are, which
are.
means there's an agreement in place.
Yes, there is. It went into effect in 2008.
Okay, I knew it'd been a good long while that they'd been operating.
Right, and it was signed by the then county administrator.
Thank you. This document, these three sets of documents, Mayor, this one is the consolidation study report.
Part of it,
Beg your pardon?
part of it.
And that's the question. These two, are they from the charter?
Ordinance, those are ordinances,
Charter ordinances?
not charter. Those are just unified government ordinance.
Okay, so not part of the consolidation study report. I wanted to be clear about what it was exactly that we're looking at, because this report
It's
was
part of the
produced
charter.
3 months prior to the actual vote. So the study commission, while valuable, is not law. It's a report. I don't know, other than, again, with the casino comparison, what were the other reasons that brought forward us needing to look, number one, at the project, number two, at the parking, and number three, the duties and rules that staff should follow versus authorities of the elected body?
Yeah, well, commissioners came to me. It started off with, it went to Commissioner Burrow's standing committee. He had questions. We couldn't answer them. We looked into them. We got as far as we could. We sent it back after the developer pulled his request for additional consideration from that standing committee, but there were still questions. We have a new commissioner, Commissioner Burns. I know some of his constituents, was being relayed to me, had a lot of questions about that. I believe that Chief Friend had not only called me, but it has called other commissioners as well about his concerns about, and I know we talk about parking, and I don't know who did this study, but I can tell you, I drive around here on certain, good luck finding parking anywhere around City Hall or in our parking lots, because it's just because of the good traffic that the casino brings, because we want them to be successful at that venue. So parking is very limited as it is, and I think that was the chief's concern. And the third deal is just, okay, who actually approved this? And I think a lot of our residents and some of our commissioners and myself, I agree, and you can disagree with me. At the end of the day, you're the Unified Government Board of Commissioners. You create policy, you set it, you set the resolutions, you approve ordinances, and you give the direction along with the budget to go forth that gives our administration, which is staff, to carry out the will of this commission. And I've gotten constant questions, even before I became mayor and even after, about who's really running things here at the unified government. And I think if you all choose to delegate a lot of your authority away to unelected officials, that's your purview. But I'm looking at policy, and the policy, if we need to change that to reflect that type of government, I'm all for it. I respect and will support anything that you all choose to do as a unified government body. Makes no difference to me. This isn't about me. It's about me trying to help you all be better informed, more engaged, and to have a little more oversight into how things are done and how things are brought forward and the disposition on matters that happen within our city. That's what this is about. So me going through these ordinances and really looking at them in depth, and it takes a lot of time. And I know I'm missing some because there's so many more that I could have brought forward, but it's just, I don't have the time or the resources to be able to do those types of things. So I brought what I could that are just the bare bones basics And that's what you're looking at. That's what I read, to try and give you all just something to think about. And if you choose to go that route, I think it would give you all a little more leverage. So when these types of questions on, okay, because there's a broader question that was brought by legal, and I did mention it to the administrator, and it's concerning to me, and I hopefully it'll be concerning to you. If you go back to the powers and the duties of the administrator, and if we take into account of what I read on the administrator being able to sign all contracts, deeds, and other things, I think this is a gray area based on the opinions, or I'm not even gonna call it an opinion, the interpretation of some of our attorneys. I would say that what is to prevent a mayor or an administrator, Tyrone Garner, 10 years from now, and I want to sign and deed away City Hall or the Fleet Center or any other buildings or properties or any interest of the unified government based on that analogy? That's a question. And it was a concern to me because there's nothing to prevent that based on the view of legal, which to me, sometimes I don't agree with legal all the time. I have the utmost respect for our attorneys, but I don't always agree. And that's one of the areas that raises a big red flag for me, because based on that analogy of past practice, I think that needs to be clear, that at the end of the day, this Unified Government Commission should make that decision, not the mayor, not the administrator, nothing personal against anybody. And not anybody's staff that's not elected. This body with a majority vote should make those types of decisions and should be clear. And that's all that I think a lot of folks I'm talking to are advocating for. And I know that's some of our commissioners that I've talked to are advocating for. And I think that gives you all a little more leverage. Again, like I said, to ensure that you all are truly the engine running this government in a way that reflects the way you were voted in to have it run. So thank you, Commissioner Bynum, Commissioner Ramirez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll try my best to keep my cool in the moment. We all know where I stand on this. Why do we have staff then? We're the ones to be the one to have the final say, final authority. Why have staff? And I want to apologize to David and to staff for the continued just bringing down on the staff of doing their job. The demonizing, the victimizing of staff. It's being said that we're the big boss, that we have the final say. We are partners in running this government and keeping this community safe. We are partners. There's no power struggle. And to this resolution or whatever it's on the board, on our agenda, it's in my mind a public censure against staff. And that's not our authority to do so. That is the county administrator's authority to discipline, terminate, and do what he needs to continue the operations of this government. That is his authority, not ours. If we have an issue, we bring it to David and he will deal with it within the bounds of his authority, the bounds of the employment law, state and federal. We need to stop legislating as we're the administrator. We're the policymaking body. We are not experts in every department. I'm not an expert in public works. I'm not an expert in housing, in community development. I rely on the advice, experience, and education of our staff to guide my policymaking. I don't know everything, and I will not say I know everything. Staff, you are a partner with us You know I have stood by you since day one and I always will, because I cannot do my job without you. And I again apologize to David and staff for the continued just going against staff for no reason. Yes, do we need to change some things? Yes, has staff made mistakes? Yeah, we're human. It happens. But again, if it's an issue, bring it to the county administrator who has the authority to handle it. He's the one who will make the changes. If he comes to us and asks for our advice, he's a good county administrator. He's a good partner in running this government. So I don't know why we continue down this road when we have other issues that we need to deal with and handle. You know, this in my mind, and I know it's gonna be said against me, and I'm gonna say it anyway, because I just do not care anymore. This is a waste of our time. Staff is already doing what we're telling them to do. We passed the ordinances. Nothing else to say. The staff, I hear you. I stand by you. I need you so I can do my job that I was elected to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I would agree with you, but, I just don't agree that you're totally right. I was a staff member. I worked there for 35 years, 32. You haven't. I've been a manager. I've been an executive. I don't know if you have. I've supervised. I've managed. I don't know if you have. I've served on several boards, not just this one, and operated things and watched things in a certain way. I don't know if you have. I've had over 32 years worth of training in management. I don't know if you have. No disrespect to you, but I support this staff just as much as anybody up here because I need them too. But in any government, there is a hierarchy. In our United States government, we have a president, we have a legislature. There's a hierarchy that we all are responsible to. Laws are made and we have to follow, whether we like it or not. There's no baseline of all of us win a trophy because we're all on the same team, even though we didn't win the game. There is a hierarchy, and there should always be. That's how our system of government and most governments are set up. There's governments, go to New York, I've talked to that mayor, sweeping powers. I've talked to councils and others, sweeping powers, because they're engaged. They're voted by the people to run their governments and run their cities. They don't hand the keys over and delegate what the people voted them in to do to other individuals that weren't voted in. Staff is here. That's what administration does. Decisions are made by this body. Staff is there to carry it out. And they do a good job. Once we tell them what to do, they do an awesome job. I was one of those employees. And they work hard. Most of them. All the time. This isn't about hiring or firing anybody. This is strictly about policy. Nothing more, nothing less. And what I'm reading in our policy that was approved by past commissioners probably decades ago, and revisiting this and saying, okay, does this fit the criteria where you all feel reflects where we need to be today based on this issue that came up and questions that were brought to me? Nobody's here bashing staff. I have nothing bad to say about any of our staff. Matter of fact, I praise them and thank them for their work. I work with them every day. They go out of their way to make sure me and my folks get what we need to help you all be successful and make informed decisions. And we are all in this together. But if you look at our org chart, it starts with the people, the commission, the mayor, the administrator, and staff. That's that hierarchy, whether we like it or not. And the people voted you all to make decisions. And I just feel like When questions come from our people of who authorized this, and I tell them, well, some employees made this decision, not the unified government. I'm going to be honest with you, people in this community have a problem with that. And again, I challenge any one of you commissioners that disagree with me, come with me for one day. Because I'm out here in this community every day. I don't get home sometimes at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night. I talk to the people. I'm in their meetings. I'm in the streets. Probably more so than I should be. And I'm getting this feedback, not something that I want, but I'm telling you what people want. And they say they want this body to start listening to them. Little things like this, we shouldn't even be arguing over. It should be clear. This is the commission. This is your purview. Has nothing to do with me. I'm not asking for anything for me. This is to help this body and future body of commissioners to be able to go out and tell the community at the end of the day, yes, we make these final decisions. There's no question. There's no doubt about it. So I just wanted to make that clear. Thank you, Commissioner Kane.
We've lost more staff members in the last couple of years than we have in the 19 years I've been here. And I rely on staff heavily to help me do my job. And I have 1,000 questions, and I know I'm the most mouthy commissioner they're used to dealing with, but all I want to know are the facts. The facts are the facts. We have had employees stand at that podium and rip their ass to pieces on stuff, which is very, very disrespectful when we do that. We have a legal department to make sure that we don't get sued. We have multiple issues that we rely on staff to save us from being sued. You know, in this particular issue, if that's the deal, the next time that happens, then it comes back here. But Mayor, you say you're not going after staff, but in my mind, they should all unionize. Because it sounds to me like you're beating them down, and you're beating us down too because of our opinions. I don't stand up here like you just did with Christian and say, hey, Mayor, I didn't like it. I give my opinion, that's it. That's all. And I haven't been here for just a couple of years. I've been here for a heck of a long time. And it's frustrating when we put this and we do this to staff, because we lost a whole bunch of people in legal recently, and we can't fill the jobs. We can't fill our economic development person because people are watching these commission meetings. I want quality people here to guide us. You know, I have to deal with public works all the time, and they got to guide me. I talk to the lawyers. I talk to Bridget Cobbins all the time. Say, hey, I've got a question. Alan House, I've got a question. You know, and to help me do my job. And I think that's what we're asking all. I know that they should not make all our decisions, but they should help guide us to make the right decision. And I'm sorry if you disagree with that.
Commissioner, thank you. And I don't disagree with you. I think me and you are saying the exact same things. Nobody's attacking staff. I'm talking policy. I haven't mentioned staff. If anything, I praise them. I don't know what you're talking about when you say staff is being, they're not. This is about policy. And you mentioned you want to make the best informed decisions. Well, I do too. That's why we're here. I don't know if you knew about the parking agreement. I know I didn't. I know some of the other commissioners didn't. That's why we're here. For that very reason, and looking at policy on how we can improve the level of information and communication between staff and you all. So we don't run into these issues, and then certain commissioners and myself don't get asked, why is the public parking being given away to a private developer? I would love to be able to say, because this commission approved it. End of story. I think can't argue with that. And that's what our policy says this commission should do. That's all. So I'm going to say it to the public, since it seems to be going on deaf ears. Public, I care about our employees. I guarantee you the vast majority of them do a great job every day. I was one of them. I support our employees. I'm going to continue to do that. We have some of the best employees you'll find anywhere in the metro. Are we all perfect? No, we're human. I think Commissioner Ramirez said that. This is not about employees or our personnel. It's about policy and looking at it to make sure this commission is comfortable with where we stand on how things are being run in accordance with the charter and the ordinances. And I have to do that because I'm sworn to make sure that we're following it as it's written. And if you don't like the policy, my thing is, number one, we're bound by state law. And number two is if you don't like it, change it. That's all I'm saying. I'm good and will support whatever this commission wants to do. But that's what this debate is about. It's not about debating about what employees did or didn't do. It's about policy and how we make sure that this commission is well informed and is making the final decision and is the final arbiter and gives the final disposition on matters that are of interest to the public. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. So thank you. Commissioner Lopez.
There we go. Yeah, I agree. I mean, the staff is phenomenal. I mean, I know we make some mistakes, but but I was doing some research on this, when this whole resolution or this resolution of adopt reinstate the authority. Commissioner Kane was, I guarantee he was here when it happened. I just don't remember who the mayor was, but it was originally before it was it Joe? Sorry. Anyway, Marinovich, I believe, is on my research was she's the one that had it changed. It had something to do with some strip bars, and it had something to do with the mayor or something was paying somebody. I don't remember something to do that, but Marinovich changed that, and it's something to do with that. But we just need to change this back to like it was originally. There's just so much going on that it's like, whoa. There's just been some bad decisions made every now and then but it ultimately needs to come back to the commission to make the final. And our administrator, I mean, like today on our on threes meeting, I loved it. I was like, wow. I mean, he really made some really good points, and I loved how, he just stood fast and just put his feet in the ground and not going to budge. But that being said, I mean, and then as far as this going forward too, the adoption has nothing to do with, I mean, it won't take place. It won't change anything with the city hall lofts or anything like that. It's already in play. But I do want to make a motion to reinstate the authority of the Unified Government Board of Commissioners to set all overall policies. I want to make that motion to get that moving so we can move forward and get stuff done. As a business owner too, I mean, there's a lot in play that I see some bad decisions, and not purposely. It's just when it comes down to it, there needs to be one boss, and we are that one boss as a commission. Oh, thank you.
I'm going to hold off on recognizing your motion because we still have other discussion. I believe we have the administrator.
You're talking about a few issues here. First of all, if we can go back to the start of this discussion, let's take just a quick history road. A previous commission passed the rezoning of this property for this use in 2022. The petitioner also wanted a variance for parking. It got denied at the same time. They made arrangements and got it approved in July of last year. So this project's out. You're talking about another issue, and that is the staff running amok and doing their own thing? Well, our training is we have to follow what's in the ordinances. Those are the policies. that are outlined and passed by this board and previous people who served on this board. And until they're changed, that still is our direction. If you're talking about the simple issue about a parking agreement and who signs it, we already have a policy dealing with property disposition. Not to counter the mayor, but there's no way I could ever sign away real estate like municipal building here. There are rules that I have to follow that were passed by this body to deal with property disposition. And those directions are ones we have to follow. If you're talking about wanting us to look at property disposition policy to include stronger language on who authorizes leases of public property, we didn't give it away, it's being leased. But we can bring that property disposition ordinance for reexamination and discussion by you folks, and then you can make changes for that. But the municipal code is large, which has gone through public process and review, and those are the directions that we follow. If a precedent was done incorrectly by a predecessor, I can't do anything about that, but it was viewed as legally okay in this case, and therefore I authorized it. And that's that. One thing about a zoning change, and I know that there was discussion behind the scenes that more and more people have surfaced that were against this project. Once the zoning is done, the owner of that property has a vested right to be able to build on that property under that zoning classification. That's not coming back here. That person is building, can build that project because they have a legally vested right that can't be taken away from them to do that. The Board of Zoning Appeals is specifically called out as a body in state government by state statute that says appeals to policy for land doesn't come here to get approved. It stays there. So they received approval for if they could satisfy their conditions, which they did, and the owner's proceeding with their project. However, I do want to let you know that most of the time when we deal with development projects, parking issues are taken care of in the plan development process with planning and zoning, making sure that they meet the parking capacity required by types of uses. And then that goes through the plan commission and eventually will come here. So it's not like this stuff is done in a vacuum. It's complicated. We do have policies in place called the ordinances that we have to use as our direction. And I would suggest if you would like a closer look at the property disposition to include stronger language on leasing municipal or UG owned property for private use, we can do that.
Thank you, Administrator. Selling City Hall is just a hypothetical, so. All right, thank you.
Could have a bad day.
Oh, no. Commissioner Bynum?
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate the administrator for bringing some clarity to some of that because it's interesting and has been interesting the whole time I've been a commissioner that there are areas where those decisions simply don't come to the commission, and the Board of Zoning Appeals is one of them, and it's laid out in state law. And this isn't the first time a developer or even an individual has needed some kind of variance through the planning and urban design division and something has gone to the Board of Zoning Appeals. I have a couple of questions. First of all, and legal maybe, or Callie with planning, you can tell us who is the Board of Zoning Appeals? Who sits as that body?
The Board of Zoning Appeals is made up of members who are the same staff that is in the Planning Commission. And as you know, the commissioners decide who those members will be.
So I want to make sure I understood what you said. Is the City Planning Commission that is appointed by this set of commissioners the same people who sit as the Board of Zoning Appeals?
That is correct. There are two separate standards and two separate committees with different, judicial powers and legislative functions. But effectively, they are the same people physically in the chairs during each meeting.
Okay, thanks. For clarity from legal, I think on the resolution, in the first paragraph, it says, whereas the Unified Government Board of Commissioners under section 2-56 of the Code of Ordinances. And then the second paragraph, whereas the Board of Commissioners pursuant to section 402 of Appendix C of the Code of Ordinances. I would like clarity around the reason those two particular items are called out in this resolution, and perhaps what that is trying to tell me is that if we resolve by the governing body section 1 to the extent permitted by law, et cetera, are you identifying that these are the two places in the code where that resolution will sit, will live? I need to understand a little bit better what this is, where it would reside in the code. And then lastly, its implication for any other item that goes to the Board of Zoning Appeals that once it's either denied or approved needs a signature. Are we making a statement with this adoption that in fact we are not authorizing our county administrator to sign a decision by the Board of Zoning Appeals? I need more info than I currently have.
Commissioner, I'll take the first, Jeff Conway, UG Legal. I'll take the first question first. The procedures with respect to Board of Zoning Appeals, if you don't like the outcome, the appeal is to the district court across the street. It doesn't come to the commission. So to that extent, the commissioners may not have seen this issue because it went to BOZA and that's where it was. And if it went any further, you probably still wouldn't see it unless you keep track of the proceedings across the street. So that's that question. I actually drafted this resolution at the request of the mayor's office. And so as far as the language and the whereases and that type of thing, that's just a statement that under section 256 of the code, the Board of Commissioners already has the power to adopt the codes, ordinances, resolutions, et cetera. So that was just a recognition that that already is in the code right now. And then the second whereas is that under section 402 appendix C, that it lays out that the Board of Commissioners already acts as the primary policy-making body for the UG. That's already in the code. And the county administrator is also determined to be the administrative head. And so those roles are already laid out and it's pretty specific. So given that context, then the mayor's office wanted to reiterate, restate that the Board of Commissioners has fundamental and final authority to set policy. So that's what that language says. And that section 1 is not to be codified in the code. It's just a resolution restating what's already in the code.
So it doesn't give anybody new powers or take any current powers away from any person associated with the unified government.
That's my reading.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lopez.
Yeah, I think this is also why, so let me ask, urban design, plan zoning here, before you start a project, is it a rule of thumb or part of your ordinance to that petitioner to send a letter to the neighbors? Because the Indian Nation Casino never received a letter about this project at all, ever. And now they are up in arms. And we are now looking at the funding, in the past 16 years, they've paid us over 7.6 million, roughly almost 500,000 a year. Because of this project, because they didn't send the letter, he's saying you can say goodbye to that 500 grand a year.
So there is the agreement of the payment annually, but that's to pay for public safety. We provide police and fire.
Right. I asked him about that.
So
And he said he doesn't have, he said, we're just being neighborly. We're just being neighborly.
well, if they withhold the payments, then either we wouldn't provide the services,
If they have enough money, they go buy their own.
then I guess.
So we're looking at whatever this project could bring us versus it's a huge cut. That's a huge cut.
Callie McLaughlin, Department of Planning and Urban Design. Most of the planning entitlements, with the exception of just a handful, do require a public notification. The public notification radius is 200 feet. Given the size of Huron Park, it's likely that they did not fall within that 200-foot boundary. Therefore, they would not have gotten a notice. I am able to pull up the list, and I believe I provided kind of a generality of who was included. And it would have included the neighborhood group, the Strawberry Hill Neighborhood Association. The president of that neighborhood association would have received that, some various residences that were within 200 feet of that boundary. And then it was also provided to Commissioner McKiernan, who was commissioner of that district at the time. And then I believe the at-large district commissioner as well. So it did go to some people, and those lists were in fact generated and mailed, but unfortunately, it doesn't seem like they fell within that 200-foot radius.
So that now it's going to cost us 500 grand a year for that small little overlook.
I can't speak to the terms of those agreements and parking agreement. I can only speak to that 200-foot radius and what that process entails. Those are separate agreements made with other governing bodies here. All our ordinances allow us to do or require us to do is the 200-foot radius notification.
Okay. And then also, how come I did finally receive the archaeological study from Terracon. How come our state archaeologist does not have that?
Unfortunately, Callie McLaughlin, Planning and Urban Design. Unfortunately, Randy from Historic Preservation had to leave. But from what I understand, we have different levels of districts here, and this is not an archaeological district. However, we did require as part of this during the Landmarks Commission that they do what's called a ground penetrating radar or GPR study. GPR was completed by Terracon in conjunction with the State Historic Preservation Office, and it did not appear that anything was determined to need excavation or that would have been relevant. I believe the building was damaged or demolished multiple times over the decades and was demolished, I believe, in 1964. And there's different standards of excavation, care, and preservation at that time that may not have been considered, more carefully in historic. So if there was anything there, it was likely already removed or already damaged beyond an extent that was deemed reasonable to be able to preserve. Without finding evidence through this radar that there was anything left underground to preserve, then the archaeologist would not have to be called into play. Furthermore, as Randy kind of described to me earlier, we do have an agreement internally with our Historic Preservation Office within our department and with the State Historic Preservation Society about what our archaeological scope is for recommendation. And in this case, because the district is not an archaeological district, at however level Randy and SHPO, as the State Historic Preservation Office, classify it, an archaeological study was really not required. It could be handled internally through our office. But we did go that extra step and request the ground penetrating radar, the GPR, just to verify that there were in fact nothing underneath that job site that we could see that would be determined to be a significant importance.
I understand that because it's not just a normal cemetery. This is a national cemetery, which my Fed guy hadn't got back with me yet, but he will, because there's other ordinances in play that I think will supersede the UGs.
And I appreciate that. And unfortunately, that is not my specialty. I'm more of the construction person. I just can relay with what Randy provided me for context. And so I would defer to him for some more details onto which districts are archaeological districts and which district has different classification and what the procedures are for each one of those historic districts. They're different from Quindaro than they are different from, Hanover Heights and so on and so forth. So each different district has different policies surrounding it, depending on the extent of the buildings or the type of site or landmark in that area. So I apologize. I'm not able to comfortably explain that in maybe a better fashion. So I would encourage to follow up with Randy, as I know he is needing to make that evening appointment, but that is the best of my knowledge at this time.
So, and then does Randy have best of your knowledge, does Randy have a degree to hold this role?
Yes, I believe he graduated from Missouri S&T with a bachelor's degree in historic preservation.
Great, thank you.
And this is Wendy Green with legal. And I remember after we had the standing committee meeting and you were asking about section 106, and that falls within the National Historic Preservation Act. And I did look into that after we had that meeting. And that act only applies if it is a federal project or if it involves federal funding. And because there is no evidence of federal funding involved, even if they may at some point get federal tax credits are not the same as federal funding. And so because we don't see any evidence of that involved, the National Historic Preservation Act does not apply in this situation. So in that case, section 106 would not apply as well.
Right, I understand that. That's what the state archaeologist followed up with me about too. But at the end of the day, we have a great neighbor that doesn't have to give us 500 grand a year, but he does. And now we're looking to lose that because of a small oversight. And that's not okay. Very concerning. And I think that's why also that second item was added to it's a small oversight that now it's going to be very costly. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Keel.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have one question for staff. Why was the commissioners not included in approving this parking piece?
Well, it was a matter before BOZA, and the parking agreement
Okay,
was
whoa, BOZA?
Board of Zoning Appeals.
Okay, thank you.
And that was the item before that body. And so the parking agreement was a piece of putting together all of the parking slots that would add up to the 60 slots that was necessary for this project. And so once that was proven to them with this parking agreement, then BOZA was satisfied. And that was it. I believe
So when you say that was it, with zoning being satisfied, does that mean zoning had the final say?
on that variance, yes.
Okay.
But if you're inquiring about the agreement, no, the agreement was signed at a staff by the county administrator, not by BOZA.
Okay.
Yeah, the agreement was to satisfy a condition that BOZA imposed. That's right.
Okay, thank you. And in the past, the former county administrator would have signed that document without the commissioner's approval. in the past.
Yes, that's correct. The other parking use agreement that we have in play right now is the one that we have with the casino. That was done in 2008. And it was also signed by the county administrator, and that agreement did not go in front of the commission that we could find. There's no authorizing resolution that we could find or an authorizing ordinance.
So,
And that, if I may, that is consistent with the authority delegated to the county administrator to sign those types of documents. And as he stated, there is a, prohibition on him selling, I think, property and signing off on that. And then obviously development agreements, which is the use of funds, would have to come before the commission. But his signing the agreement does comply with our ordinances.
okay, thank you. I'm just trying to make sure I understand what has happened previously versus the difference with that versus now. And I understand that the commissioners are to be the one to sign off on everything, I thought, until tonight when I found out there are certain things that the county administrator can sign off on without the commissioners knowing about it. So that's what I'm trying to distinguish for myself on this evening.
Right. And there are, for example, contracts, purchasing contracts, the purchase of office supplies, equipment. Once the commission authorizes the budget and say it has 3 dump trucks, then the county administrator's authorized to sign off on the contract for the purchase of those 3 dump trucks, but only if there's money in the budget for that purpose. So that's another example of when the county administrator has authority to sign documents.
Thank you. So what I'm trying to understand is, I certainly appreciate the documentation before me that lays out what role the commissioners play versus the county administrator. And I was totally surprised when I saw the paperwork come through about the parking lot and some of the questions that were posed at our previous meeting. So this whole conversation is very key for me and just helping me to understand what can and cannot be done. I understand in the past that the county administrator could sign off on certain items and the commissioners not necessarily have to sign off on it. I also can appreciate the role of the commissioners knowing ahead of time that something like this is going to happen also. So it's a little bit confusing, but I think I'm gradually understanding. So thank you to all of you for just being patient with me as I'm just trying to understand what's going on. My main question was, why was not the commissioners included in approving this process? And it's because the Board of Zoning signed off on it, and then the county administrator signed off on it. But still, the commissioners didn't.
So,
Correct.
Commissioner, I guess, maybe the sequence, it was, BOZA needed to be assured of the number of parking spots in order to sign off on it. And then, so the agreement was reached, that satisfied the 60 spots. And then BOZA said, all right, so that satisfies that. And so the appeal of that decision would be district court.
Thank you, Commissioner. There's some confusion. It seems like there's some apple and oranges here, and I need clarity too. And BOZA only approved the variance requests for parking, correct?
Correct.
Okay. BOZA did not approve to transfer or lease unified government property on behalf of a private developer. They don't have that authority. I looked at the state statute and I should have brought it down with me. BOZA is a subsect of the Planning Commission, and they looked at, it was denied. And they came back with an appeal for a variance just for parking. Now, this isn't so much about the deal. The deal is done, in my opinion. This is about our policy and our practices and procedures and making sure that everybody's clear, and me trying to help get the right information that's going to have a profound impact on our residents to this commission and cut out some of this bureaucracy. That's what this is about. And there's a lot of bureaucracy in this unified government. It has nothing to do with personnel. Again, it's about our policies, and that's all we're working on. And so I go back to say is that, yes, the county administrator, based on BOZA being satisfied and saying, yes, you can have a variance. And then as part of this agreement with this developer to give or lease out our property to the developer, which if the commission would have said, yes, we're fine with that. Okay. That's where we're at, but I'm saying it doesn't sound like this commission had that opportunity. And here's where my disagreement and how I look at the policy. It says that the administrator can sign. I didn't bring the mayor's duties, but it says I can sign a lot of things too. It does. But I don't sign things without it first coming before this commission and this commission approving it. Then I sign it after the fact, after I'm comfortable. This commission has seen it, debated it, is comfortable with it, and vote with the majority vote to approve it. Then I sign off on it. That didn't happen in this situation. And I can tell you, if the planning commission can't approve anything and they can only recommend to the full commission, and BOZA being a subsect of individuals from the planning commission, I didn't see anything in state law, and please show it to me. I like to see it. I like to trust you, but I like to verify. And the only reason I do that, because I'm here every day and you know, I like to see it in writing, and I like to make sure that these commissioners see it in writing as well, in black and white. I don't operate off of, you know, what you tell me. I like to see it and read it for myself. So if you can get me that, that would be great. And even on these powers of the administrator, I don't see that anywhere. And I go right back to, it says, the administrator, sign all contracts, deeds, and other documents. I get it, he signs it. I do that same exact thing. But if you go back up to the commission, the duty to purchase, to lease, to construct, to maintain, or otherwise acquire, hold, and operate any building or other property, real or personal, for any public purpose, and to sell, lease, or otherwise dispose of any property, real or personal, belonging to the unified government. And I know that Commissioner Bynum, she read the charter, but that is, the charter recommendation is part of the charter. If you read the entire charter, and that recommendation says that, is that the unified government is the legislative branch, which is the commission, the executive branch, which is the mayor, that I know some people don't want to recognize. That's okay. And the judicial branch, which other people don't want to recognize, but that's okay. And the role of our administrative staff, which carries out all these directives with the budget from this commission. And I'm just saying, the information I've gotten from both some commissioners and community, I bring this process into question. And I'm not saying that the project is dead. I think we've gone past that. But what I am saying is, to this commission, this resolution, I just reaffirms in everybody's mind that this commission, not the mayor, not our administrator, and not staff, and not even the public, but this commission that was voted on behalf to be the representative governor of the people of Wyandotte County and Kansas City, Kansas, make these decisions, and no one else. Especially when it involves public parking. When I come in here at night and I see that there's no parking anywhere, because the health department is filled up. Now we're going to add to that. I mean, they're parking all over the place around City Hall to go to the casino. And parking is very limited. Now we're going to add to that parking problem, which we don't have the public safety resources to handle, and parking control. Everybody knows they don't operate after 5 p.m. I just think in fairness to this commission, and that's what it's about, looking at this policy is making sure that our commissioners are well informed on matters such as these. And that is concerning to a lot of people. And especially from what I'm being told in the Strawberry Hill area. And so that's what this is all about. I appreciate staff again, and everything you guys have done to try and get us the information. But there's a lot of research that needs to be involved in this on just the little stuff I've seen in our charter and in our ordinances and our resolutions. There's a lot of gray areas that need to be cleaned up. And I know Commissioner Burrows has that task force and he's working on looking at it, but it is a huge task. I don't believe we're going to get all that solved tonight with all the blind spots in our charters and our ordinances, but that's why I go right back to what I've said before is we haven't even looked at them for over 25 years. Now is the time to do that. But bottom line is tonight, this was not so much about the project and developer, but about how we got to the conveyance or leasing of that property there. And was that the correct protocol with this commission, at least not everybody, from my understanding, knowing that that was going to happen, because I want to be able to go out and tell our constituents exactly and feel comfortable as the mayor, how that came about. I think I have a better understanding how that came about. But when I tried to explain that, then I got kickback from some residents saying, well, that's not how that's supposed to work. You know, when do we start giving up parking in our health department to private developers? And that was a question. And if this commission is fine with that, that's fine. So we've got more questions. Commissioner Burrows.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to try to bring this around full circle, if I may. I know we went straight from item 1 to item 2, and I don't know that I wanted to make sure that my fellow commissioners from the Economic Development Committee, as well as those who were in attendance that evening, had a chance to have the questions answered that were proposed in the committee. It was important that they have a chance to do that. And you know, Bonnie, I don't operate in a void. I want everyone's voice to be heard. There was a number of things that came up. It was the blue sheet that hit the chairman 5 minutes before the meeting to go to discussion versus an action item. And that raised some concern. I don't recall ever having that happen since I've been here in the 7 years. And so that was a new ground for us to wander through that evening. Plus, there was questions about the notification process to our neighbors across the street who have been good partners. And then there's the parking on the street. The street had been impacted by a number of parking spots, which affects not only the people visiting City Hall, but visits the other businesses downtown. The roadway was blocked a third of the way across the road in the middle of the evening. And I was concerned about a traffic impact on that. And I know that our fire station parks their fire trucks on the east side of 6th Street going south when they come out of the fire department and let us sit there. And now they're staging facing the wrong way on the other side of the street. And so it creates a little bit of a traffic concern and safety concern there. So the street impact was one that was raised, but I know the tribal grounds and historical grounds, the financial impact has been discussed here this evening. But in all respect for the new commissioner of the district and questions that was raised by individual commissioners on the committee, I felt it was significantly important that we bring this back and get a full timeline. So there's just very few questions because we've had a new administrator, we've had new directors in new positions. So it's just been a process that maybe not deliberately done, but the perception can be wrong if it's not utilized properly. So through proper transparent discussion, we can find out exactly what happened. And if there's any remedies that need to be conducted, we can do that. But due to the number of constituent questions and concerns, and I believe there was even a question about change of ownership of the development project and what degree of ownership causes a significant change. And these are things I can't answer. And those were questions that were raised that night. And I'm really glad that legal was there because it gave them a chance to forecast, for us to forecast to them the questions that were going to come forward. But I think the Landmark Commission was questioned, as well as I know some of the colleagues have reached out and talked to the federal entities. But I think some of the concern that was raised was the elimination of our only mixed-use rental facility in downtown Kansas City, Kansas, and that's at the Old City Lofts. That the market rate apartments that were in there are now being eliminated. And so the entire project will now be all low income tax credit housing. And that raised a number of concerns for many of the constituents that I hear from. And I won't speak for the other commissioners, quite capable of doing that. But I wanted to ensure that we separate these two resolution issues, Mayor, because I think we've gotten them tied up collectively together. And I know where they got tied up, and that's where the use of the government property was given the permission to be utilized by a private entity. And I want to go back to Commissioner on the end that stated that he wants to work collectively. I remember when he was first elected, we had an issue very much like this before this body. And I reached out to that commissioner and stated that that will be one of the first issues he's going to have to deal with when he got elected. And that was the private entity utilizing a government building. And so there are those of us on this commission that really do try to work collectively together to find a resolution. And I know it took a couple of iterations and some battles and some heavy lifting and sometimes some conflicting language, but it got remedied. And I don't know if it's 100% remedied, but it's moved along more smoothly now. There's been an agreement made. And I think that comes from having open, honest, transparent communication with those that are affected in their district. And so as commissioner at large, I don't remember, and as chairman of the Economic Development Committee, I don't remember seeing any renderings of any layouts of the former lofts that I can recall. And if they did come to my committee, then I'll stand corrected, but I don't recall those. And my memory serves me pretty well, but I'm not saying it's perfect. So if there were renderings submitted as to the design prior to the plan coming forward with the changes, I'd like to know, because I think it went from mixed use down to LIHTC and the floor plans changed. So if there's renderings from before, they can't be the same renderings that we're talking about today. And that's that. I don't need an answer. I just I don't want to put anybody in that spot. So that leads us to this discussion about a resolution change. And if I understood legal correctly, and the way I interpret it, it's just codification that is already the resolution and ordinance will change nothing except codify what's already there. And if that's not my understanding, please help me understand that, legal, because I believe I heard that from legal. But if that is the case, then I might want to make a suggestion, colleagues, that when we have a piece of government property that is going to be used in a development project that only requires the administrator to sign through planning and zoning, we get notified if they exceed a certain amount of money. We get notified if there's other actions that need to be taken that are already in policy. It may be that we implement a policy that says if there's a piece of government property that will be utilized by a private developer in our community, that an administrator has agreed to do that the in-district commissioner and the commissioner at large be notified prior to the signing of the agreement. And I think that's a really straightforward, very transparent, very easily done trust building option. But Mayor, I really thank you for the time you've given me. I've made copious notes this evening with the comments being made, and they'll go into my written file, but I'll stand for any questions should any of you have any questions. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Stites.
Stites District 7. So there's a couple things, and I think I totally agree on everything that Commissioner Burrows said there. Now, one thing that I want to make sure that we address, go back to the what Commissioner Lopez said about the amount of money that is given to the unified government from the Hollywood or from the in the casino there, 7th Street Casino. That because of this small oversight, I don't know that there has been a small oversight. I don't know that anybody has identified a small oversight, that they didn't get. If they didn't fall, or if did fall within that 200-foot distance, right? So I don't know that it's an oversight. If somebody can say they were outside of that 200 feet, then we did exactly as policy dictates that we should do, right? Now, if they didn't, then therein lies there possibly could be a problem. So I don't want to say that there was an oversight and that it cost us money, because I don't know that that occurred. But regardless, the other thing that I want to say is that I believe that BOZA, they acted within the guidelines of the state statutes that are currently in place. There's things that don't come in front of us that state statute mandates. And I don't believe that that staff nor the administrator worked outside any current guidelines that we have in place. I am in favor, however, if we need to bolster language, as Commissioner Burrows suggested, if we need to bolster language that strengthens our position, where if there are those things that Commissioner Burrows named, land and to a certain amount, that is something I'm in favor of, so that there are more eyes that get put on this. I totally agree with that, and I appreciate the opportunity. And if we were, I don't know if that's something, how we do that, Mayor, looking at it down the road. If we're going to try to draft an additional ordinance, do we still vote on this resolution tonight? Or how would that look? I'm not sure.
There's a motion, there's a resolution here. I was going to ask for a motion. It's up to you to vote yes or nay once I accept that motion, but we can always draft. I mean, that's what this is all about. The authority of this commission to draft, rescind, implement, or direct the administrator on any ordinances, resolutions, or policies at your will. I mean, that's what this is about.
So vote on it maybe tonight, and then it's a living document, and then we
somewhat like the task force, Sharon. As you bring forth policy recommendations or ordinance changes, those are ongoing. That's the power and the purview of this commission. I don't even have that ability. I don't get to vote. So I'm just trying to empower this commission to be able to do that exact thing and just ensure that our public, myself, our administrator and the staff are clear on the fact that this commission, as a voting majority body, has full discretion and power and authority on how policy is implemented, interpreted, and how things are run in this unified government. Because I believe in a representative form of government, that's the expectation from the voters that vote all of us into these office. They want to feel like that their elected officials are running things and not so much unelected staff that really by a policy, they administrate, they carry out the will of this commission.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councilman.
I'm sorry, but I think if I misstated, I'm sorry, but for Commissioner Burrows' question, this resolution is just a simple resolution. It's not to codify into the code. So I think I may not have made that point. So if that makes any difference.
Thank you for that. I wanted to make sure that as I was writing, as I was listening, that this doesn't change anything on how we're doing things. But yet there's an issue that some feel that this needs to be done. So there's a kink in the system somewhere. And I think these kind of discussions are important to have, so that once everybody's they learn to lay their armor down and have these discussions and find out where we agree, and then we can start working as to where we disagree. But if I'm to understand this, if we pass it, it means nothing. And if we don't pass it, it means nothing.
Well,
Or if we prove it means nothing.
Commissioner, it's a restatement of policy that's not in the code. It's a resolution. And so at least that's on record. And so that provides some direction. And I think Commissioner Stites probably was going to follow from that.
I think you're exactly right. What I think that I would like to say is that we don't vote on this tonight and that we give staff recommendation to, or direction to bring back language that says exactly what we expressed this evening, that bolsters the opinions of putting more teeth into the ordinance for the commission to be able to have the final set of eyes that looks at it.
Is that a
That's a motion.
second?
Well, I can't recognize those motions. We still have Commissioner Ramirez and Commissioner Lopez, and then we've got the issue of Commissioner Lopez's motion. So Commissioner Ramirez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to clarify for the community, I know it's been said that Bose is a subsect of the planning commission. The same 11 planning commissioners that we appoint sit also as the Board of Zoning Appeals. They're the same people. Just wanted to make that clarification. I agree, and I worked with Commissioner Burrows during that time with the same kind of issue of a private entity over taking in being inside a public community center. And as he said, it took time, took some compromises, took some negotiation between us as the unified government and them as a private entity to take and use a private property or public property. I agree that we can come up with compromises to change and, as we've been saying, bolster our authority and bolster where we get notified of certain things over a certain threshold when it comes to public property. All of that can happen without having to pass this resolution. We just as a commission vote and say, County Administrator, please bring forward, Legal Department, please bring forward language that says this. That is our policymaking authority. Again, I'll say we can make that motion tonight without having this vote. This vote's not necessary. If we all commissioners agree that we want change in language of how public property is disposed of or leased, we can all make that agree, make the motion, and give the direction to the county administrator and legal to come up with the language. The resolution that we have in front of us is not necessary for us to do that. We already have that power, and we can use that power anytime we want. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Lopez.
Okay, so question real quick about Commissioner Burrows was talking about how we were supposed to have an action item about this project, but then it got changed to information only, okay? Or discussion, whatever. And then I was told that the petitioner pulled their application. That's why it got switched. Okay, so now what about those permits that petitioner had, but then he pulled his application?
There's certain words. They put in an application for IRBs. And so that item that would authorize that for the commissioners to approve of that item was scheduled for ED&F. And then the developer said, forget it, we're going to withdraw that. And so that took the IRB issue off the table.
Mhm.
Now, they did submit an application for IRBs. And so when that item goes, I'm assuming the application is gone too. It doesn't go to the building permits or anything like that. That's a separate issue.
So the building permits were signed off by the director of who gave the building permits?
I did. Callie McLaughlin, Department of Planning and Urban Design. Yes,
Okay, you gave the building permits.
correct.
Okay, because just like what Commissioner Ramirez was stating at the beginning about, sometimes, we make mistakes and things happen. Well, and what I'm saying is that this, when I said an oversight, that it's going to potentially cost us 500 grand a year. I'm not saying, I'm just saying he's very strongly going, it's going to cost us. That's why I was trying to, I understand what he was saying is oversight, or, you know, we all make mistakes and oops, that happens. Well, that's a huge oops. That's a monster oops. That's as a business owner, that's or it's really bad. That's not good. It's, I mean, 500 grand a year, that's a lot of do-re-mi. So, thank you.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Lopez, you had a motion. Does that motion stand? I'm going to recognize it.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Okay, there is a motion. Is there a second for the resolution to reaffirm as is written the authority of the commission as it relates to the unified government ordinances?
Do we need to wait on that just for a second? We're missing the commissioner.
Commissioner Burrows.
Mayor, I want to make sure that I want to make sure of the motion, what the motion is. I just want to ensure that the motion, that staff has the motion properly written. So, I mean, I'm a stickler on that, and I apologize to the maker of the motion, but it's been a while, lost in a couple hours of discussion. I just want to make sure that we understand exactly what the motion is. And with respect to the new commissioner, he's back.
The motion is to for the resolution to reinstating the authority of the Unified Government Board of Commissioners to set all overall policy. That's my motion for that adoption.
Mayor, I'll second it for the point of discussion. We've had plenty of discussion this evening. I think we all know what the motion has stated. Legal's given us such guidance. We've had plenty of discussion. If there's a motion, let's put this to rest.
Okay, there is a motion and a second. Clerk, roll call, please.
Roll call, Stites,
I have a quick question. Since I did make that subsequent motion, it wasn't recognized, so it doesn't mean anything, correct? So, no.
Bynum,
No.
Burrows,
No.
Burns,
Abstain. No.
Ramirez,
No.
Hill,
No.
Kane,
No.
Lopez,
Yes.
motion fails.
All right, thank you all. Great debate. That takes us to the second item. The last item on the agenda is approval of a resolution. I'm sorry. That takes us to, that was it.
Mayor.
Oh, wow, time flies. We're gonna join from this.
We had another motion.
Mayor, I have.
Oh, you have a motion. I will
Yes.
recognize you. Let's go.
All right. We moved pretty quick there. So I want to make this, the motion that regarding the resolution before us now, that we give direction to staff to put in language that was expressed by the commissioners and mayor to bolster language for for us to have the final look. Disposition of public property, I guess, is how we want to say it. It's awful lengthy.
Something for consideration.
Second.
Okay, let me be clear. The motion was to have staff draft an ordinance that would codify I think Commissioner Ramirez hit it on the nose, the disposition of public property as it relates to development agreements. Okay. To be vested in the hands of the commission. Are we good with that?
Doesn't that basically, isn't that basically what it says on the, okay.
It's slightly different.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay,
That is my motion.
Second.
okay. Clerk, were you able to capture all that?
I did, thank you.
Okay. There's a motion. Who's second?
No, Kane's seconded.
I second the motion.
Yeah.
Burrows has a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Commissioner Burrows.
That's right. Commissioner Stites, you want an ordinance change or are you looking for a policy change? I mean, they're two different things. Ordinance is a little more extensive, it has a lot more meat in it. Policy allows us to still change it. I'm just curious because I know I mentioned that we at least look at a policy change. Because if it doesn't work, we can come back and massage it. Where if it's an ordinance, then we're stuck with it until we go through the legal channels again. So I just want to make sure on the clarification, because if it was due to a statement that I made, I think mine was more geared towards policy than ordinance. And then it'll determine if we need, it gives us a level of disposition. If it's over $10,000, he reports to us. If it involves parking lots or because we give away fire trucks, we give away police cars to other entities. And I don't know if we need to get caught up in that minutia. I've been advised that they're both policy and ordinance are the same thing. Policy can go into handbook, but ordinance,
Okay, well, I'm the one making the motion and here's what I'm gonna say. I want it to be policy. And so that, and my reasoning for that is that so that we can massage it and tweak it as it goes along. And then I believe that we codify it into an ordinance once we've got that final draft in place. And I believe there was a second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Clerk, roll.
Roll call, Stipes.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Burrows. Burns.
Aye.
Ramirez.
Aye.
Hill.
Aye.
Kane. Lopez.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you all. We're gonna have to adjourn from this special meeting. Clerk, roll call.
We need a motion.
I'm sorry, motion.
Move to adjourn.
Got a motion, second, clerk, roll call.
Roll call, Stites.
Aye.
Bynum. Lost. Burrows.
Aye.
Burns.
Aye.
Ramirez.
Aye.
Hill.
Aye.
Kane. Lopez.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay. The next item, there's been a request to take a short break. We'll take a recess for about 10 minutes and come back. Thank you.
I got dogs that need to go out.